Would you believe me if I told you there's actually a similarity between me and an amoeba? I know, it sounds crazy, but I mean, I'm me, and an amoeba is like a tiny microscopic organism you can't even see without a microscope. I'm gigantic compared to it. So, what similarity am I talking about? Well, they're both living organisms, and I'm sure you guessed that one. But since we're living, we're both made of cells, and cells are the basic unit of life. So, whether it's an amoeba, a mushroom, a plant, or a human, we're all made of cells. And even though these organisms look different from each other, their cells actually work in pretty similar ways. You see, all cells require energy, which means they require raw materials like glucose. And all cells create waste and they need to get rid of it. So, at a fundamental level, cells everywhere follow similar rules. But there are some big differences too. For example, in the case of amoeba, its entire body is just one single cell. So, it's said to be a unicellular organism. But on the other hand, when you look at humans, plants, and animals, we're all made of many cells, which is why we are said to be multicellular. So while an amoeba does everything, right from taking in food, producing energy, removing waste, all happening inside that one single cell, multicellular organisms have specialized cells to do every job. So, if you were to look at the human body, there are muscle cells that help you move, red blood cells that help you carry oxygen, nerve cells that help you think and communicate with different parts of our body. But is it that there's just one very big muscle cell helping us move, one gigantic RBC transporting all the oxygen? No, right? But rather, there are many, many cells of the same kind. So, in such a scenario, when you have so many muscle cells, so many red blood cells, so many nerve cells, how do they all work together? Well, the easiest way is to organize them. So, how do they get organized? Let's understand this with an example. So, whenever we learn about cells, we compare them to bricks of a house. But how does a brick finally become a house? Firstly, we take a bunch of bricks and we construct a wall out of it. And we arrange three walls or four walls and then we make a room. Now, many rooms are put together or many spaces are put together, which finally becomes the first floor of the house, and different floors are stacked one on top of the other to make a house. So, pretty similarly, if we say that bricks are the basic unit of a house, when we say that cells are the basic unit of an organism, and especially when we consider a multicellular organism, we see that it is organized at different levels. So, our body, of course, is made of different types of cells, but cells which are similar in shape come together to carry out a common function, and they form something called as a tissue. So tissues are often defined as group of cells that are similar in shape and that come together to perform a common function. So let's say we have a muscle cell, then we see that muscle cells help us move. Now muscle cells that are similar in shape and size come together to form the muscular tissue that helps with movement. And similarly, we see that there are different types of tissues in our body. Some that help us with movement, some that help us with transport, and some that provide with protection. But now these tissues get organized further and form an organ. Let's say if we were to take the example of the stomach. The stomach is responsible for churning food and helping with the breakdown of food. So, mainly the body of the stomach is made of muscles. But along with that, we also see that the stomach has a protective covering outside of it, and it also has tissues that helps communicate with its surroundings and with other parts. So, effectively, an organ is a structure which is formed when different tissues come together and help carry out a common function. And in this case, what is the common function? It is the breakdown of food into simpler substances. But is stomach only responsible for the breakdown of food? No, right? I mean, we have different organs like the mouth, the intestines, and we also have other parts that come together and help with the process of digestion. So, when different organs come together in order to carry out a common function, we call this as an organ system. And in this case, the stomach, the intestines, the esophagus all contribute to the function of digestion. Similarly, we have the circulatory system that helps with transportation. We have the nervous system that helps with coordination. So, our body in itself is made of so many organ systems. And finally, when all these organ systems come together, they form an organism. So, when we refer to the human body as an organism, now you know what goes behind it. So, this entire idea that we've just discussed is what we know as levels of organization in the human body. Now, I'm sure you must be thinking, right? Are levels of, or do these levels of organization exist only in humans? Do we find it in plants and animals? Well, animals, yes, right? Because we know that animals like cows, dogs, elephants, giraffes all have organs like the brains, lungs, stomach, and they also have organ systems inside of their body. But what about plants? Do you think plants have this concept of levels of organization where they have organs and organ systems? Because plants are multicellular organisms, which means that their body is made of many cells. But you see, there is not just one type of plant cell. There are different types of plant cells, like palisade cells, root cells, and we see that different cells, which are similar in shape and size, come together to form the plant tissue. So there are some tissues that help with protection, some which provide support, and some that helps with transportation of water and food, and there are some tissues that help with growth too. Now different tissues come together and they make up different plant parts. So you have the root, the stem, the leaf, which all have special roles to play. And finally, when all of them get organized, they form two systems, where we have the shoot system and the root system. And eventually, the shoot system and the root system together form the entire plant as an organism. So, with this, if you look at it, we have understood how in multicellular organisms, when there are many cells, they get organized at various levels so that they can carry out different functions. So, I hope that the concepts related to levels of organization in animals and plants is now clear to you.